Okay, so welcome to This Week in Birding and Nature Photography. This is Stephen Ramsden. I'm the director of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project and the Sunlit Earth nonprofit. And we are having a little difficulty with our guest, Bill Anderson, down in Wilmington Island, but he will get it together soon and everything will be fine. If you're on the Zoom meeting with us, please mute your microphone unless you have something to say, so we don't have to listen to your background noise. And hey, Rebecca.
Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now, Bill. Very good.
All right. It's been a little bit of a hassle. I went out
Hey,
there on the deck. I thought I could get reception, but it was pretty weak.
no problem. We are live on Facebook now, and we are going to intro the show. And here we go. So, yeah, technical glitches aside, we are using Zoom software. And, you know, I'm 55 years old, and when Bill and I were youngsters, none of this existed. So we're lucky we're able to use any of it.
That's right.
We have connections from the Georgia marsh, from the coast of Georgia, and the marshes on Wilmington Island with Bill Anderson, our special guest this week. And we have a lot of other people who have signed on to the Zoom meeting. And here's what this is. This is a weekly get-together for photographers and birders and people with like interests. So we can just shoot the breeze a little bit and talk about what's going on in birding and what's going on in photography. And it should be some fun. It's just going to be ad-lib and unscripted, and we're going to have a good time. So guess what? Fall migration is in full swing, brother. The place is packed with birds. I was out at the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve yesterday, and I saw warblers and virios. I saw Kathy Miller. So definitely fall migration is on when the birders come back to Clyde Shepherd as well as the birds. So the pond is still a little bit dry, but we are going to get that filled up here in the next month or two when the rains come back, and we will have shorebirds and bitterns and yellow crowns and black crowns and herons and everything else all over the place right here in the Atlanta metro area. Speaking of shorebirds and bitterns and yellow crowns, my friend Bill Anderson basically sweeps those off the patio every night. His backyard is full of birds, and he lives in a beautiful house on the coast on Wilmington Island, or close to the coast, and he's got a view of a marsh there you wouldn't believe. So I invited him on to talk about what's going on in his neck of the woods today. And again, this is Wilmington Island, which is down north of Savannah a little ways. And he's got, hundreds of years old oak trees in his yard. He's got a beautiful bird feeder set up. We met at the Savannah National Wildlife Reserve just before a thunderstorm, and we hit it off because we're both Navy veterans, and we both love taking photographs of birds. So I thought Bill would be an excellent guest to have on this time. Oh, and he got knocked off again. How about that? So let's see who we have on the Zoom meeting. We've got Rebecca. I'm guessing that's Rebecca Sealand or Rebecca Anderson. We've got Ann Burns with us. We've got someone with no name with us. And Bill is back. Bill, have you got, oh, he's connecting to audio now. So let's make him in the spotlight. Bill, are you able to hear us again?
Yes, I apologize. I had my mouse pad on my knee. It slipped off, and the damn mouse hit the floor, and that was all it took. I apologize.
I cannot believe it. So we just gave a glowing intro to you and told everyone how great you are and where you live on Wilmington Island. And we were talking about the migration here at the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve and how it's going in full swing.
Yeah.
And about how down in your yard, the birds we all get excited about, you're pushing them off your patio. You got so many of them out there. You can't even walk to your backyard without running into an American bittern or a yellow crown or something like that. So welcome to the show, and I appreciate you being our first guest. How's it going?
Going good, Stephen. Thank you for including me in this. I'm glad to be here and share whatever I can. Hopefully some of it will help some of the viewers. I do live in a wonderful place here. I'm so thankful to be here, and it's since 1979. It's been a long process of remodeling and building decks and docks and doing different things in the landscape as well. But it's all worth it, and I just love it every day. It's in my blood and my soul. But anyway, I'm born and raised in Savannah and lived through all my life and enjoy my grandkids now. Actually, I wanted to say too that Stephen and I, when we met, it's been what now, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah.
At Savannah Wildlife Refuge, and we connected right off the bat with the first thing that kind of got our attention. We both drove or drive FJ Cruisers.
Yeah, because we have good taste. Yeah.
That's right. And we shared our naval experience that we both were in the Navy. So that kind of made the initial connection. Then, of course, with the birding and wildlife and sharing photos and comments and stuff, and subsequent trips that we had also worked out well.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and Bill, we're also both towering men of enormous stature and handsome good looks, and it's just those types of people just kind of draw together. And it was real impressive to see the two of us together. It was like two Greek gods at Savannah National Wildlife Reserve birding. Anyway, that's the way I remember the meeting, but go ahead.
You're just too kind, I'll say that. But anyway, I don't know, like we say, this is sort of impromptu. I mean, I shoot with Canon. 7D Mark II is my go-to camera, and I use the Sigma 150 to 600 sport lens. That combination, I thought maybe I could improve it getting a mirrorless camera, but nothing does like that 7D Mark II. And that's my go-to. And I've got macro lens and some other stuff, but that's what I primarily shoot. Software, I use Lightroom. I don't really get too deep into weeds with it. I just use the basic stuff to do. But all that being said, there's lots of good optics out there, cameras, good, you can name them the Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Sony. It all depends on what somebody likes and feels comfortable with. And,
And Bill, that 7D Mark II it uses the APS-C sensor for those that are interested in that kind of thing. And it's really basically the same camera as the 1DX Mark II that I shoot with. Mine's a full frame and his is a crop sensor. And they both have their advantages and disadvantages. So both excellent cameras. And I think, Bill, the 7D Mark II would compare to the Nikon D500, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I didn't realize that. I'm not much on the Nikon line as far as comparable things, but that's good to know. But anyway, that's kind of, it's not, I don't get too extensive in things. I mean, that's what I use to shoot with, what I choose to process with. And I love to shoot, as long as I've self-taught, I've learned everything I know, whatever that is at this point, on YouTube and through the Canon site, and some friends and a blog that I also look at. So it's just shoot more, shoot often, I think, is the key. And then subsequent to that is you process more, and it takes all that to come together to make it look good.
Right. And so you use basically the raw importer in Adobe Lightroom to edit your images.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's what I use too. And a lot of my viewers have seen previous webcams where, my processing flow is very similar to Bill's, and I just use the Adobe Raw importer, and it's the same whether you're using Lightroom or Photoshop, and it's got some basic adjustments, and you can come up with a great image and crop it. And Bill, you're shooting in RAW, is that right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Right, because you know what you're doing. So you're instead of JPEG, and I tell everybody all the time, if you're going to shoot in JPEG with a $1,500 DSLR, you might as well buy a $200 point and shoot. RAW is the way to go. When you shoot in JPEG, you're just allowing the camera to process your image, and it processes every single image exactly the same. And that's just not acceptable when you get into hobbying, avid bird photography like Bill and I. You want to use the RAW format, and then it's just like you're still at the camera. When you get the picture at home on your computer, you can adjust the exposures, the saturation, pretty much anything except, unfortunately, the focus. Now, when they come up with a focus adjuster in RAW, then I'm going to be set.
Me too. I'm always looking for the sharpest, and I don't always get it, but you're right. The point you brought up about point and shoot, I think everybody should start at a level they can afford to test the waters. Don't go head over heels with all this high-end equipment until you understand and realize this is what I like. And then you can become, more familiar with photography each step of the way. And then, of course, the processing, that comes later too. But good points you mentioned about all that makes for the best photographs.
Bill, we've got a special visitor who just signed in, and she's humble and doesn't want any attention. I know Alexandra. She is currently muted, so we can't hear her wonderful laugh. But she's from the UK, and she is part of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project in the United Kingdom. And Alexandra just received an international award for an astronomy photograph last night in Greenwich, England. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit later and get Alexandra on here. She's got a beautiful garden like yours in the UK. So we'll talk to her a little bit later on. Thanks for joining us, Alexandra. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, Ann. Nice to see you.
We are going to count on your wonderful English accent for some commentary here shortly. Okay. So, Bill, what do you got going on for us today, man? What's happening in the yard?
I've got a little video that I took because I felt like I could kind of put things in a small packet to show the front yard and kind of what the lay of the land. So if that's okay with you, I can run that.
I would love to see that. And you know how to share a screen. Bill and I had a crash course in Zooming a couple of days ago, and he is now an expert. So if you'd like lessons in Zoom, Bill's available.
All right, just a second here. Oh, God, it worked pretty good. I thought I was going to have some difficulty. Anyway, here it comes.
Very good. And this will be 2 or 3 minutes, and y'all
About
just
3
enjoy.
minutes. Yes, about
Okay.
3 minutes.
And if you wouldn't mind, people mute your microphone so we can hear the audio in the video, if there is any. Okay, so here's the problem, Bill. You're going to have to stop your screen share and then reshare your screen that the video is playing in.
Oh, okay. All right, just a second. I wish I could. All right, let's see.
Stop share.
All right, let me get back over here.
And there you go. I stopped your sharing for you. And now rewind the video if you can, and press screen share screen, and then choose the screen that the video is playing in. I know that look, by the way.
Did that work?
Well, now you have to share the screen.
You know, this darn thing, it gives. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
No problem, man.
Let's see.
So when you double click the video, it will come up in a screen where it's playing, and you have to share that screen.
Okay.
Here's a barn owl, everybody. That's a barn owl, Alexander.
Okay, let's see.
And you know, this reminds me, why is Zoom so difficult? I mean, you know, just share the whole screen. I mean, we're going to get to this, and there it is. Now you're talking. Perfect. And Bill, we're not getting the audio, so you want to just tell us about what we're seeing?
Okay, yeah, this is coming around the corner of my house, looking out on the front side, I call it, facing the marsh. That's my bird feeding station. It's just a crisscross affair with those limbs that I put in the ground to allow for perches.
Right.
And I've redesigned this station. This is the old picture, but I'm going to post some information on this later. It's a major upgrade on it. And this is just walking out now around the front. Patio would be over to the right around all the landscape.
And do you maintain this yourself, or do you have a crew
I
that comes
do.
in?
I do all the work, and I don't mind it. I cuss a little bit sometimes, but I like it.
Yeah, I've been to Bill's backyard, and this video is really doing it justice. It's unbelievably beautiful back there.
And here we're walking further down toward the bluff, the beautiful oak trees interspersed with some palms, and then looking out, and then we'll go down a little bit further here to the walkway. That takes us out to a small creek. It's tidal, so I have to plan my boat trips by the tide. Up to the right, that you see there's a tree house.
Oh man,
That's where I'd hoped to be this morning, so you could kind of see over my shoulder, but it didn't work. It's a nice spot to relax. It's also tucked up in the tree limbs, and you can peek out and get some pretty good photographs sometimes.
Wow. Look at that oak tree limb right there. That I saw that when I was there, and I was just blown away by how beautiful that was. His whole backyard is full of these limbs that just go out horizontally in every direction.
Yeah, I love those limbs, the way they snake out like that, and it's beautiful. Those majestic oaks. This is looking straight out southeast from Wilmington Island. Beach Hammock is to the left, and then Wausau is to the right. You can't see them, but the sound, of course, is right in the middle. Wausau Sound. This is looking over. I'll pan around here in a minute.
Man, that is beautiful. And when I was there, it was low tide, so it wasn't nearly as pretty. It was mud, but there was millions of crabs running around in the mud.
Yeah. And there's the tree line along the marsh with those oaks. It's just they just add so much beauty to the area, and of course, palm trees do too. So anyway, this is about to come to an end. We're coming back the way we came, and as you see, the tree house there on the left.
Now, Bill, you say you lived here since 1979?
1979 was the year.
And did you build this dock and this walkway and all that? Or?
I did. I built all this pretty much single-handedly, actually. I had a little help with the roof structure on my dock outside, but other than that, I did it all. This is the end of it. This area is just full of trees, not a lot of good tree cover, vegetation, and it draws the birds in pretty good. Okay. So that's it. But I appreciate being able to share since you asked me to do this.
I did, and those limbs again is something that you're just spoiled with. Those limbs on that oak tree are, your whole place is beautiful inside and out. But I'm gonna tell you, when you see those oak trees out there, it's hard to believe how beautiful they are. You gonna show us some pictures, or did you have something else to talk about, or you want to?
I do. I have some pictures. Now I don't want to overload this thing, so we'll kind of go through. Let's see.
I want you to overload it. Everybody's been looking forward to seeing these birds where you live, and like I say, you're spoiled rotten down there because we haven't seen an interesting bird in 3 or 4 months up here. So that's like a turkey.
Absolutely. I wanted to be sure that things were still working so you can see it. Yeah,
I'm going to mute myself also so you can talk and I'll quit interrupting you.
Well, that's okay. You can input anytime. Yeah, this turkey, this was at Harris Neck. A lot of these photos are not in my yard, but then again, a good many of them are. That was at Darien Wildlife Management Area, roseate spoonbill. I'm trying to remember what that bird is. I think it was a female or a young painted bunting. Of course, the red-headed woodpecker. And there's the male. Such a beautiful bird. It's hard to believe how something could be created like that, and the colors and the symmetry and everything about them.
Well, I lasted about 30 seconds muted because I love to talk. But can you go back to that picture?
This one?
We first off, I like the way you sign your photographs, William of Wilmington Photography. I think that's clever because Bill lives on Wilmington Island. This is a juvenile male painted bunting, and it's just getting its colors in. And it's just a remarkable bird, and it always makes me wonder, why is this bird developed in this manner? What evolutionary advantage has come from these color patterns? And the color patterns are the same on the different males. It doesn't vary. The patches are the same color. And then that female that you showed earlier with just the pale green and all, it's just such an interesting thing, and it's just one of the many things that gets me out into the woods and on the marshes looking for these birds. Wouldn't you agree, Bill?
I absolutely do. It's always a thrill to see these because they're pretty elusive. And this year, though, has been phenomenal for these birds. I'm so happy to see the numbers, and I've seen them at my house and south of here, up in South Carolina. And, what is the worst thing about their beautiful color and just how beautiful they are is they're trapped in for the pet trade down in Central, Latin, and South America.
Yeah, I've read about that. What a crazy way to make money. I mean, trapping trapping birds, and they do it in South Florida as well. I understand there's even a task force for the DNR that specifically goes out and looks for these people that are trapping these birds.
Wow, I didn't realize we had that here going on stateside. I thought we.
Yeah, there's a big problem in South Florida with it. And I was watching a TV show, so it must be true. I mean, it was on TV, but So
well,
what was your
on the right? Yeah, the right channel is.
Now. All right. So what else you got in there?
Okay, this is out off the coast. If I go out, like I pointed out, that looking out in the marsh, that's the sound area. There's a bunch of birds. You know, there's gulls and terns and willets, mostly willets, and I think a few red knots. It's a real nice mix of shorebirds. Black ground night heron. I forgot what this bird was, but it was an unusual. Maybe y'all can help.
I believe that's a yellow-throated Virio. I could be wrong, but
okay.
I'm not as good as a lot of the people. If Kathy Miller was on here, she'd tell us exactly what it is.
Yeah, I know there's some that know them right off the bat. I'm lacking in some of that. This was a summer tanager, right on my stick outside the window here. And this was I think from what I ID'd, it was a red-eyed Virio.
Yes, that is what that is. And hang on just a minute. Would you go back to that, what we thought was a yellow-eyed Virio? I mean, we're not in any hurry here, are we? So
no, not on my part, not at all.
Okay. I happened to have shot a photo of one of those yesterday, and I was going to pull it up real quick and see if that's the same bird and look at it. So just to make sure.
Yeah. I'd love to get a verification on it.
Just take a second. And this will show us a little bit about, I'm going to share my screen real quick, and then we'll go back to your screen. This will show us a little bit about the Sunlit Earth Facebook page. Are you seeing Facebook on my shared screen?
I'm showing, what am I showing?
Let me try this again. See, we are clearly experts in this, and we're going to get Alexandra on here, and she's going to show us how to do it. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. This is the Sunlit Earth Facebook group, which I think all the people on the Zoom meeting are already members of. But if you're watching us on Facebook, come join the Sunlit Earth Facebook group. It's awesome. There's no attitudes or arrogance. Everybody wants to see what you see reflected from the sun, and it's a really cool group to join. So let's go down here. I just put this photo up yesterday of this Virio, and let's compare them. So Bill's got his shared, and I am going to find it just like this. I'm going to use the search button. I'm going to search Virio, and it's going to come back and show my post that I just put up. Yep, there it is. Okay, so that's my yellow-throated Virio.
That looks to be the same bird. No
and I believe it is the same bird. Can you share your screen again? Yes, you can. And Alexander, if you're speaking to us, we can't hear you because you're muted. Okay. Alexander's going to show us some British birds, and you can tell they're British because they say things weird and have strange names. All right, so I'm stopping my share.
Okay, let's see. I'm back at, I guess, what I had here originally.
All right, and just hit your share screen button again.
See, that's what gets me when I'm in this. There is a share on the upper top, but does that?
No, it's in the bottom center of your Zoom window.
That's what I thought. That's a different kind.
Maybe the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project solar glasses would help see this better.
Yeah, anything's better than what I got. Oh, shoot.
No problem.
Okay, now maybe I can do something different here. Let's see. I got all these windows, and then none of them really give me that share.
We got plenty of time, and we are going to look at one or two photos here while you're, well, no, we're not. We're going to look at me. Here we go. Check this out. Viewers. Hey, there's my hummingbird feeder on my patio while Bill is waiting to get his screen shared. Our hummingbirds first arrived March 29th of this year. And by the way, Alexandra and our UK viewers have never seen hummingbirds because they don't go to the UK. They don't even have hummingbirds. It's horrible. How can you live a life without a hummingbird is my question. And I live in the middle of Atlanta, a major metropolitan area, and we barely have hummingbirds. So we had 3 this year that stayed at the feeders from March 29th all the way through to today. I mean, yesterday I saw them early in the morning and I haven't seen them at all. So I'm thinking that maybe our hummingbirds have left, but this is my hummingbird feeder from my 2nd floor. And the other thing I have highlighted today is a invasive species that everybody knows. This is called the Rose of Sharon. And Alexander, do they have roses of Sharon in the UK? Or they probably call it some crazy British name, right?
No, that's something new to me. I've never seen that before. I don't know.
Well, people call it a weed here. I love it. I love them all. I think all these plants are super special. But this just grows like a crazy weed in our yard, and it blooms a little bit in fall. And that's the Rose of Sharon. And it always has some kind of weird bugs on it too. Right now we're not getting any bugs, but it does have a lot of weird bugs. And,
how big is it?
Oh, it's probably 3. Well, let's see. I got to convert centimeters. Hang on. Let's see. It's 7.5 centimeters.
That's small then.
It's a pretty small bloom. We'll get back to that. I want to pick your brain for a long time, Alexander. But we're going to go back to Bill now. He's got his screen shared again. And go ahead, my friend.
Oh boy. Okay. Sorry for the delay. And okay, we're back to, we verified that yellow-throat vireo, summer tanager, red-eyed vireo, great blue with a minnow in midair.
Do you know what kind of minnow that is, Bill? I'm kidding.
I call them glass minnows. That's all I know.
Glass minnows. And here's something else Alexandra doesn't get too much of in the UK.
No.
No, I wouldn't think you do. That was at the refuge back in the month of August about 2 years ago. It was unbelievable, the activity in that area.
And Bill, can you go back to that and tell Alexander how we determine the size? And this is an alligator, which we haven't mentioned. This is an alligator, which is a freshwater species. The crocodile that Alexander may have seen on television, they also don't have in the UK, is a saltwater species for the most part. So these are alligators, and this alligator is eating a fish. And tell us a little bit about alligators for Alexander's benefit. Like, there's a way that you're supposed to be able to tell their full body length by looking at their head. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. Yes, if you see them in the water and you see the tip of their nose to the tip of their eyes and take a guesstimate as to whether that's 10, 12, 8, or whatever inches, that equates to their length in feet. And I mean, it gets you pretty close. I think it's a good rule of thumb.
And that's
so do you have both crocodiles and alligators then?
I guess I'm not sure about the crocs, but because they have a different nose configuration, they're more narrow, and I don't know whether the distance, but I mean, it should be pretty close to the same, I would think.
We do not have crocodiles in North America, but they do have crocodiles in South America and Central America. We probably have some that have been set free down in the Florida Everglades, but we don't have them native in the United States. But boy, we got a ton of alligators, don't we, Bill?
Oh, I mean, there's more gators than most people really are aware of, and the places that they are, if they show up, sometimes you just wouldn't expect. Another thing interesting about gators, you know, they lay eggs in a huge clutch. They build a mound of vegetation to create spontaneous combustion to keep it warm. And if the temperature is like, I think it's 95 degrees is the pivot point. If it's over, they're all male. If it's below 95, they're female. So it's all a temperature thing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Something else I learned recently at Stephen C. Foster State Park in South Georgia was that the baby alligators, inside their eggs, which are sort of rubbery and flexible, they're not really egg shells, but they'll start making a clicking noise when it's time for mom to dig them out. And I didn't know that. They make a noise that the mother can hear because the mother sits in the water and guards the nest, right? And we saw a mother doing that down at Stephen C. Foster, and I was thinking, boy, this would be a really bad time to be walking along the bank and decide to sit right there because that alligator tear you to pieces if you get near the nest.
Oh man, that's the most crucial time to stay away from them is when a mama's guarding her nest. And most times they're scared of humans. I mean, they don't want any part of us. But if
Right.
we threaten them, their little ones, or them corner them or aggravate them, I mean, we're probably going to get some kind of
They're going to put a hurting on you for sure. So that alligator looks like it's about 10 feet long to me. I'm basing that on that being a 12 to 14-inch bass or whatever fish that is.
Yeah,
But
I think you're
that's
right.
A little bit big, not unheard of. Don't they get up to about 15, 16 feet in your neck of the woods?
I think I hear more about a 14, possibly 15,
Yeah.
but I don't know the actual deal on that one.
There you
But there's
go.
some big one.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just that, we take alligators for granted in our birding, but most people have never seen an alligator, and I mean, outside of the U.S., and this is a global nonprofit, so we might have people from all over the world. I doubt they have alligators in Pakistan, and we have a big unit of our nonprofit in Pakistan and really all over Eastern Europe. And I'm telling you, these folks would jump out of their socks if they had an alligator as close to them as we've had them on the wildlife drive. But go ahead with the rest of your photos.
Okay, let's see what's next. These little birds, they tend to be my favorite subjects because of all the crazy antics they can do. This one's just doing a stretch, nothing unusual. They just stretch their wings and their neck, kind of like we like to do if we want to stretch out a little bit.
Right. And that's a green heron. So
yes, green heron. And it's hard to see the green, but anyway, I think most of it is right in there.
Yeah.
Between the eye and the beak. But, and then, of course, the pileated woodpecker, the last resemblance of the ivory bill that's no longer around. Some say it is, but I don't believe it. That was in my yard.
That's in your yard.
Yeah. Merlin, a small raptor, Savannah wildlife. Wood stork coming in for a landing. They're beautiful in flight. Not too beautiful up close, but they are beautiful in flight. Baby great horned owls. That was at the refuge.
Wow, that is a remarkable photograph. These are juvenile great horns.
Yes.
That are not yet fledged, I'm guessing.
Right.
And they're sitting up in the great horn and the barred. They don't build a nest. They just kind of dump their eggs wherever they feel safe dumping them. And a lot of times a great horn will take over an osprey nest, I've noticed.
Yep.
These birds just sit there, and mom and daddy bring them crawdads and lizards and snakes and whatever else they can find. And Bill, these birds hatched in your yard and fledged in your yard, I'm guessing.
No, this was a Savannah wildlife picture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But now there have been some close by, not in my yard, but right in this stretch of land. But and I see the parents, but I don't see. I haven't found a nest or anything, but I'm sure they do. And I found a barred owl nest now further down on the north end of the island last year.
Wow. And this white downy feather that they're showing is a characteristic of just fledged owls of many species. And the barred owl is not nearly as pretty as this, but it's still a beautiful bird when it's fledged. And it looks like a big hairy soccer ball, like a soccer ball that's just got white fur all over it. It's really an interesting bird to see.
Yeah.
Oh,
osprey with a fish in tow.
Alexandra, do they have osprey in the UK?
That is actually my most favorite bird in the world, and that's actually the bird that brought me into bird watching when I was probably about 5 or 6, because in the UK they were persecuted until they were extinct. And then I think it was in about the 1960s, one pair managed to fly in from Scandinavia by accident and nested in a site in Scotland, which was greatly protected. The RSPB, which is the Royal Society for Protection of Birds, bought the land that the nest was on. And because of the persecution and the egg collectors, what they decided to do was to actually open the nest up to the public instead of keeping it secret. This meant that hundreds of people were flocking to come and see the ospreys, which meant that nobody could steal the eggs. And since then, they've had a huge success, and now we have, I can't remember how many, it's probably a few hundred pairs breeding now in Scotland, but also breeding now in Wales. I think they've got 7 pairs. And I think a couple of pairs actually at Rutland Water in England. And what they're trying to do is, because they're not spreading very well, is they are trying to, what they do is that they take the chicks from some of the pairs in Scotland when they are just before fledging. So if not quite, but they're just about ready to. They take them from the nest. And what they've been doing is they've been relocating them down to Poole Harbour, which is on the south coast of England, and then feeding them, just giving them the last few bits of food, you know, by human.
Before they fledge, yeah.
Yeah, and then it means that when they fledge, they fly around that area for about 2 to 3 weeks, learning where they are, and they think that that's where they were born, because when they then
so they
fly
come back
down
to
to Spain and then through to Africa and then fly back again, they always come back to where they were born. So it's very, very early days. They managed this year to have, I think, 1 female returned back to Poole Harbour and actually sat on this nest all through like the summer, but no male came. So she just sat there. She was very frustrated. I think she laid 3 eggs without an egg.
Unfertilized.
And then abandoned. But we're just slowly getting there, and it's been a great conservation effort. So you may think that you have them everywhere in your gardens and everything like that, whereas in the UK they're absolutely critically endangered under, you know, like top security and everything, under, you know, sort of like great conservation activity. So not something to take
Bill probably sees these every time he goes outside. In the city here, we don't get many ospreys. We get 1 or maybe 3 or 4 in the winter time where I live. But there's a line in our state that if you go south of that line, that's when you start seeing all these great birds. And I'm just north of that line. But Alexander and I had scheduled a birding trip together on Merritt Island and Orlando and that vicinity, Bill, back in March of this year. And we'd scheduled it months in advance. And it was going to be a wonderful trip for her and her husband. And they were going to spend 2 or 3 weeks in Florida. And of course, I warned her about people in Florida, but she still wanted to come anyway. And it all got canceled because of COVID. But, you know, and it was funny to me because they were really looking forward to seeing the cardinals, the scrub jays, the ospreys, you know, all the birds we take for granted here. So it was really wonderful to talk to her, and she really got me motivated to go birding. And we were very sad that it was canceled, but hopefully we can do it again as soon as we get a vaccine. So thank you for that, Alexander. I had no idea that any of that was the case in the UK with these ospreys. So I won't be taking them for granted. I've got one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken was an osprey grabbing 2 fish at a time out of the water, flying off with them. So go ahead, Bill.
Okay, let's see. Little snowy egret in the rookery with the nice feathers that they have that time of the year.
Breeding plumage.
Great egret. A little bit of a tail breeze blowing there with some backlight. I thought that made for a pretty good picture of one of those.
Absolutely.
These birds now are some of my favorites. You don't see them everywhere, but the oyster catcher.
Yes.
This is a pair that happens to be over on that same area, those shorebirds I showed earlier. But they're very unusual, beautiful birds. There's one with the wingspan. You kind of get an idea of what is underneath. This is a redstart. This little guy came in when I just happened to be out on my patio, and there's a big leaf, like it's not a banana tree, but it's like that, and it had water in it. And he was having the biggest time getting a drink and taking a bath.
American redstart. You think that's a female or a juvenile male, or did you know? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, you know, they say red, but I mean, there's yellow on this bird. I don't know if it's a female or just a juvenile.
Yeah, I don't see any red on them when I see them. Even the males, they're just kind of black, you know. But yeah, that's a real interesting bird, and we just got our first redstarts here at the Nature Preserve this week. So that's a good sign that migration is underway when we see those around here.
It absolutely is.
And my hummingbird is at the feeder right now. That's why I changed over to the hummingbird camera. But go
I
ahead.
see him buzzing around. You know, I took your advice. You inspired me to buy that feeder. I had feeders that weren't working well, but I love that design. It works great.
It's really easy to clean too.
It is, and the birds love it. I mean, they're here like they never have been, really.
Yeah.
This was Rosie at Spoonbill just coming in for a landing in the wetlands down at Darien. Skimmers, a skimmer here doing his thing. Lower bill shorter than the top, and he just skims along, and if he feels something hit the bottom beak, he snaps shut. Usually he's got a fish.
Yeah, and you got to wonder how that evolved also.
I know.
Yeah, and what a fragile environment, you know, because if the water goes away, the nice long, clear, open stretches of water go away, then the bird will go away.
Exactly. Yeah, you just, you know, and a lot of the water in this particular area has been dried up, so that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Purple gallinule.
Look at the feet on that thing.
I'm sorry?
Look at the foot on that thing.
Well, that's another adaptation. You know, it's all about so many things. I mean, I think that's what makes birds so wonderful and interesting is the adaptation of the way they're built. And that big foot allows him to spread out that weight on a lily pad, and he can just walk out there on it like it's nobody's business.
And is that a purple gallinule, Bill?
It is purple gallinule.
Yeah, less common than our common gallinule. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. They'll leave here and go south, and then they come back, I guess, about April. But they like the warmer climate, and they pretty much like lily pads. I mean, you might find them other places, but lily pads, I think, are necessary to have them.
Absolutely.
Long-legged. This is a black-necked stilt.
And you know, look at the legs on that thing. Why? You know, it really requires a specific habitat to survive. You know, water of that depth or lower, because you know it doesn't swim. You know, and if you can't find water that depth or lower, then he's not going to eat.
That's right. Yeah, and if it gets too high, I mean, that's another thing. Sometimes, you know, these wading birds, they want to touch bottom and still have enough body up above to go down to feed.
Right.
You recognize that, Stephen?
Yeah, I believe that's a bobcat, one of my nemesis creatures that I'm always trying to find. Go ahead.
They really can drive you crazy, and I hadn't seen one in over, I bet you, 8 years. And then when you and I were together one day, I saw some. This one was when I was over there by myself, and a lady pointed it out to me way down the trail, and I just slowly walked down until I could get some good images. And he seemed to cooperate, so that was great.
Yeah, and this is the first time I saw one and got a photograph was also at Savannah National Wildlife Reserve. And you know you're going to have a good day when you get a photograph of a bobcat, especially one as good as this, when the bobcat's looking at you. An interesting feature on the back of these bobcats is they have a little white dashes on the tips of their ears.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always kind of wondered why they had that too, and I guess it's just to identify themselves to each other when they're out hunting around, you know, because they like to hunt in the grass, and they'll walk in the tall grass along the side of the marsh, and when they see some bird out there that's not paying attention, they'll just pounce on it, and drag it out, and rip it to shreds.
Right. They're pretty cool. They're good hunters. Whoops, I went too far. That's a glossy ibis. It's a little bit dark there with the light on the front of that bird, but they're rather pretty. And this is another one that can test your patience. It's a little easier. But I've been fortunate to see some of those over there, and some of them out on the lily pads, just walking and feeding and standing up on stalks. Yeah,
you know, that bird, if you'll go back, that least bittern, that neck on that bittern is just as long as that green heron you showed earlier. That's all right if you can't go back. But that thing can stretch out to over twice its apparent size. The size in that photograph, you know, he can stick that neck out twice that far.
Oh,
and that's a really weird bird to watch. And I've noticed they're at Savannah Wildlife Reserve maybe for about 4 to 6 weeks at the same time every year, and then you never see them again. And they make a really interesting sound also. But go ahead. This great blue heron looks like it's having a wonderful, delicious lunch.
That's actually an invasive species of catfish called an armored catfish. They're all throughout Central and South Florida. And and I don't suppose they'll ever be able to eat enough of them. But people down there don't like them. And,
Yeah, I've seen those birds wrestle with those fish for half an hour, 45 minutes trying to get one of them down.
yeah, they do.
And that great blue heron is just a crazy eating machine, man. And that, I was doing some research on it the other day, and that bird's been in its present form for about 30 million years. That bird has been that size, that color, basically identical for almost 30 million years. And, human beings have been in our present form for maybe 3 million years. This bird, and of course, we all think these are just dumb animals or whatever, these birds have been around a lot longer than we have and have really perfected their evolution to this niche environment they live in. And we should be taking a lot of lessons from them.
Yep, I agree. We've taken a lot of design features from birds.
Yeah.
Hairstyles and aerodynamics and the whole bit.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to grow myself one of those long, breeding plumes, but it just ain't gonna work anymore, man. Unless I grow it on my chin, then I can do it.
Hey, I know the feeling. Yeah.
Swallowtail kite.
Swallowtail kites. They came in pretty good numbers this year, and I noticed at various places around the state and in South Carolina where people have had good luck spotting these. That's another gallinule just with the wings up.
Mm-hmm.
This just gives you a small view of the amount of spoonbills. This was at Bear Island up in South Carolina.
Keep talking, I will be.
The sky was about to turn pink with these birds. There was so many of them. And a few ibis there at the bottom are mixed in. There's a spot too, a different refuge. This is Donnelly. There's a tree that always attracts them to come in and perch for a while and sit tight and get focused in. You get some pretty good poses. Kingfisher, that was off my dock just recently. White pelicans, they're all around. They seem to be these days more than they used to be, but this was at Bear Island. Five-line skink, prettiest blue, other than what you see on a bluebird. That's pretty comparable. Nuthatch, that's on my suet feeder. I've just taken a log and drilled some holes in it, and then I load those holes with suet and hang it up. It seems to work real well. Another green heron. This is probably one of the most unique poses I've been able to come up with. He was doing the stretch. This is a barred owl. We talked about owls earlier, but this is a barred owl. This was up at Beaver, Audubon Forest in Harleyville.
Yeah, Beaver Forest, great place to go birding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful spot.
I recognize that shot.
Yeah, a little prothonotary building a nest inside that hollow cypress knee. Another pileated. And that's a oyster catcher in flight. Now these are cool. These are rather young owls. These are siblings, and they hadn't really kind of developed their full skills, so they're sticking together. But they were perched over in a tree. The embankment that this neighbor has, there's trees growing, and they were sitting in that tree. But they've got that look like they got caught with their hand in a cookie jar or something.
Yeah, interesting thing about these birds is, and a lot of raptors, they can't move their eyes in the sockets, and you'll see them doing this sometimes. You'll see them, they'll look at you and then they'll do this, and they're trying to gauge your depth because they can't, move their eyes around to get a depth perception.
I never thought about that side movement like that, and I know the neck is like 360. They can turn all the way around and do stuff that way. But I never thought about trying to gauge your size by that lateral movement.
Yep, it's very interesting to watch. And, they can't move the eyes in the socket for some reason. And I was wondering why, why is that better for them? How is that an advantage? And it's just another one of the things you pick up when you're out looking at nature, when you're out in the quiet and nobody's bothering you, you're not watching any stupid television news or anything. your mind begins to wander and you start thinking about the stuff that's important. And it's really a relaxing experience to be out there doing this, and you start noticing things that you would not notice on a daily basis.
There's no better therapy than Mother Nature, you know. That's for sure. I agree. That's the best time I spend is when I'm out. That is, that's a green-winged teal.
Is it?
That's a Paris neck.
Yeah, it is, because I saw that for the first time down there in Merritt Island, and I reported it as a cinnamon teal, and of course I got a beat down immediately on social media. I got birds flamed by 10 different people. I didn't know what I was talking about, yada yada. But green-winged teal, that's a really beautiful, beautiful duck.
It is. Again, back to the feather colors and the configuration of colors. It's amazing.
You know. Hey.
This eagle was out on a piece of driftwood actually it was out off to the left of where I live.
And that's from your dock, isn't it?
Yeah, from shooting from my dock.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of bald eagles from my patio here in Midtown Atlanta. I wish I did.
I know. Maybe one day you will. You never know. I bet you
never
will.
know. We did have a great blue heron land on the roof of the neighbor next door for some reason one time. And I have no idea why, but it just kind of stood there and looked around and realized it was in the wrong spot and took off. So.
That is unusual. This is one of my favorite pictures of osprey. This was out on the way out to where I photographed shorebirds and up on a piece of driftwood. I mean, this bird just
wow.
stood there and just gave me the perfect pose. And
that wind,
probably the best picture I've got.
Very nice. Wood duck.
Speaking of colors, they're beautiful.
Yeah, and a lot of
little turtle.
Yeah, look at that turtle. A lot of decoys are made to look like the wood duck, you know. And I can't, you know, I get it. Hunters are, you know, hunting and protecting the environment and all that stuff too. But you know, the idea of going out and shooting one of those is just beyond me. I don't still understand that, but that's a very popular bird to shoot and then mount as a hunting trophy. Oh, yeah. So I guess they're appreciating the beauty of it in their own way.
Well, I don't know. I'm with you though. I don't think I'd want to shoot one.
Is that something in the background, like a female tail, or is that just a weird piece of wood?
It is. This has got some darkness beyond it, but that's exactly what it is. There were a pair of them together, and he was in the forefront.
Very good.
Hey. And there's duckweed which is I think their primary diet. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And I know this bird as well as I know my name, and I can't call it.
That's a kestrel.
Yes.
Or sparrowhawk, as they call it in some parts of the world.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of the common name that people give it, sparrowhawk. But yeah, kestrel. Yeah. Those are beautiful birds too.
Very small, and they're ferocious eaters. You know, they're very small raptors, or falcons, I guess they are. And I saw my first one down in the Dominican Republic when I was with my friend Raphael doing some birding. And yeah, I'd never seen one in person before. What a beautiful bird. You know, the colors are real striking on this bird.
Oh, they are. Absolutely. Okay, we're back to where we started. So that's kind of all I had as far as pictures.
Well, have you seen any interesting birds in your yard in the last week? Because we're talking about fall migration on this show. How many ivory-billed woodpeckers have you seen in your yard this week?
I don't believe that's going to happen. I've seen more pileated here recently than I expected to see.
And Bill, you know, what got you started? You know, you retired like I am, and you retired from a high-stress career just like I did, and we're about the same age. You know, I started this by hiking to get some exercise, and Alexandra kept yelling at me because I smoked and because I was fat. So she would tell me, you know, you're going to die if you don't go exercise, in her polite English way. And so I started just walking around in the woods, you know, and that's kind of when I noticed all this stuff, and I just really got into it and started taking photographs, and it's really become a passion of mine. What got you out to start doing this?
I've always been a nature nut. When I was a kid, I'd roam the woods. I did more of that than I did anything else. I was collecting snakes and turtles and going in these ditches and canals and doing different things. But I've just always liked it. And I bought a camera way back when I was in the Navy. That would have been in the 70s. It was a Yashica, pretty nice.
1970s or 1870s? It was the 1970s. Okay, all right.
Did I say 18?
And where did you grow up again? Did you grow up in Georgia?
I just look like 18. I grew up here in Savannah.
Okay, so you've been doing this since you were a little kid then?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're not photographing, but in love with nature and all the things about it. And anyway, that's kind of where it started. And then now being able to photograph and enjoy it 2 and 3 times beyond the initial sighting, I love it.
And would you say you've come across, I know you haven't come across anyone as high quality as me, but have you come across a lot of people out birding that have become friends?
I have. And that's one of the things I like about it. I'm really a solo shooter, but I do enjoy connecting and spending some time catching up and talking or meeting people, getting to know who they are and what they like. And maybe that leads to a connection on Facebook or Flickr or something like that. But yeah, I think it's a great way to meet like-minded people that, share the same love of the environment. And that's a big part of it in itself.
When I was a kid, I was in Southwest Atlanta, very urban environment, and I had no exposure to the woods or nature or anything else. And then that lasted all the way through my time in the military, which, I didn't see anything underwater. And it wasn't until the end of my working life that I started really noticing these things. I used to go fishing all the time. And now I really regret the stupid things I did when I was a fisherman because, I didn't have any appreciation for it. And I remember I had a friend I used to fish with who would always point out the animals to me. And it just didn't register with me until I'd had a life full of stress and gotten into my 40s. This stuff just didn't really register the way it should have. So you're really lucky that you were able to grow up with that. And, I wish I could go back and spend a lot more time in the woods than that. So somebody who's interested in this and has no experience, knows nothing, has nothing, what would you tell them to go out to do just to start appreciating these creatures? And sunlight. I mean, we're talking about sunlight. Everything Bill showed you in every one of those photographs, the only reason we can see any of it is because of nuclear fusion going on in the core of the sun, producing visible light that comes through our atmosphere and bounces off these animals. And we happen to have evolved eyeballs and photoreceptive organs that are sensitive to these wavelengths because that's the only way we could stay alive when we were when we were evolving as, coming from the primate branch. We would be killed if we couldn't see. And now these same organs allow us to appreciate nature. So what would you tell someone to go out and start doing?
Well, I just say go find some spots that you feel comfortable in and do it at a time of the year too when the heat is not oppressive and the bugs and stuff, because that can deter you from doing things in the future. But if you go and there's state parks and there's greenways that certain places have put up, trails, anything that takes you into that environment, just go and don't be in a hurry. Take your time, look around, look up, down, and all around, and just listen too. Pay attention to the whole experience, and I think from there, that's about as elementary a connection you can make to nature, I think, and then it depends on.
I would agree.
How you go from there. That depends on a lot of things.
Yeah, and I've found that it's very effective. We have a garbage and litter problem in the city here, and it comes from people that young people that grew up the same way I did that don't really know any better. Everybody really knows better, but people that just walk outside and they dump their garbage everywhere. And a lot of times it's not malicious, it's just ignorance. And I found that it's a great way to get somebody to stop doing that and stop destroying the environment by taking them out and showing them how many creatures' survival depend on them not doing this. So I found that to be really helpful. And that's one of the things we do with Sunlit Earth is try to bring as many people as we can out into the woods for the first time to see the damage that's done by somebody throwing out their hamburger wrapper or somebody dropping their snot rag or their COVID mask, just leaving it on the ground in a nature preserve.
Right.
I've got pictures of several animals that I've rescued through a local rescue group that have had fishing line wrapped around their legs or their neck, or they've had eaten balloons and died because it's stuck in their throat, or whatever it may be. And these people throwing this garbage just don't know any better. And it's a really easy way to approach someone, because your intent might be, let's get this idiot to quit throwing garbage. But you approach them and say, hey man, you want to go out and take a walk in the woods with me and see what's going on? And one of the byproducts is they start to appreciate their environment better. Right. So we're go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with you. That's the way to solve a problem instead of compounding it.
Yeah, totally. So where are you going to go birding today, Bill?
Well, I'm redoing my bird feeder station. I've put some 10-foot conduit pipe up in it and crisscrossed it. Took all that wood down that I had up there because it was warped and ugly. And then I took and put PVC, 3/4 PVC slipped it over the 1/2-inch conduit to provide like a roller. And I've cut it into like 12-inch pieces. My hopes now, it hasn't been proven, but that anything that goes up the center post and out to try to get to the feeder, that those things will be like stepping on ball bearings, and that they'll roll right off and not be able to get to the feeder. And I'm referring specifically to squirrels and raccoons.
Yes, I understand that problem. Here in the city, the problem is mainly rats and some squirrels. The rats eat the squirrels here. So our rats are, we easily have 18, 20-inch long rats here, Norwegian brown rats.
Yeah, they're big as a possum, right?
Oh, they're bigger than a possum sometimes. But yeah, possum may be a decent match for one, but they will flat out kill the squirrels. And it's taken a lot for me to get the rats not to come into my yard.
Wow.
And maybe I'm guessing that the home of the rat, as we know, the UK, Alexander probably has lots of information on rats. And the bubonic plague was spread through the UK via rats. Bill, I can't thank you enough for being on our first show of this week in Sunlit Earth. And I hope that you'll stay on and maybe answer questions or talk with Alexandra, or give us just a little more insight. But I'm certainly grateful for you showing all of your wonderful photographs. And I can't wait to get down there and go birding with you again, man. This whole quarantine COVID stuff is really cramping my style, because I'm an in-person kind of guy, and we have fun together. So I'm really looking forward to when we can do that again.
Good, I am too. And you're very welcome, by the way. I appreciate you choosing me to be on today. And like I say, I hope I've added something that maybe will be of some help to people, or some inspiration, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I was happy to do it. And
very good.
Alexandria, I called you Ann. I apologize. I saw that under your name.
Well,
I don't know.
there is an Ann. Yeah, there is an Ann also signed in, Ann Burns.
I see.
And Rebecca Seelan is still signed in. And of course, you're welcome to come along and talk if you'd like. We've got about another 15 minutes or so. There's really no time limit. But Alexandra, thank you so much for coming on with us. Briefly, Alexandra is probably the most noted, among the most noted solar photographers and astrophotographers in the world. She's very popular. She is a solar imaging fruitcake, just like I am. She has gear that will blow you away, and we have been friends since 2012, maybe 2013. And I actually was fortunate enough to visit and meet with Alexandra in 2014, I believe. And that was at the Astrophotographer of the Year Awards in 2014, where I thought I was hot stuff, man, and I won an award, and I was over there. Yeah, baby. And then Alexandra came in and beat me and won the better award. So I was I was pleasantly humbled by meeting Alexandra and the hubby, we'll just say. So what's going on over there in your yard, Alexandra?
Well, it's sort of like summer is just going over now. So
right.
It's sort of like going into autumn. So we have very, very few birds around at this time of the year, because they're all finished breeding, they're all molting, and they all sort of like disappear into the woodwork. And we don't
right.
sort of like see them again through to about maybe end of October, November, when the weather starts getting cold. But
so do you get a migration like we do? Do you have any sorts of times of year where birds migrate to and from the UK? Or are they all just trying to get the hell out?
Well, we've got our residents that always stay here. I think, like in the US, I used to, when we used to watch the cartoons from the US and they used to sort of like say, fly south for the winter, we used to think, what is that? Because, our birds don't do that. But we do get migrants that do come from much further north and actually come to us in the winter. So they obviously still fly south for winter. So they actually come and join us.
So you have I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
You have a large and beautiful garden, and I've seen photographs of it. You're a very private person, and I understand. But you do have a beautiful large garden that's well maintained, and you have your solar telescope in the garden. So you must have an appreciation for the birds that come through your garden. And I really appreciate that. And you really get what I'm doing with Sunlit Earth. In fact, you've got your own conference on our solar imaging website, which is called solarchatforum.com. And Alexandra has her own Sunlit Earth topic over there, which she tries to populate. But those old geezers, they don't want to get involved in any of that stuff. But we have fun doing it. Tell us about the English robin. Do you know that that's a big deal to us?
Yes, I don't know what happened, but obviously the robin is actually quite very small bird, in sort of like a classification of its own. It's sort of like about in the like, is it in like the same as the blue throat, whereas I think when the European settlers went over to America, the first thing they saw was a thrush which had a red breast. And thought, oh, that must be a robin then, but actually it's part of the thrush family instead. And so the true robin is actually a very, very tiny bird. So yeah, you've got a nice picture of a robin there. But we get thrushes as well, exactly the same as you, and they're actually a similar sort of bird called a redwing.
Redwing.
Yeah, redwing, which comes down from the north because they fly south for the winter and they come and join us in the winter. So that's the closest that we get. There you go, at the top there.
Okay, because Redwing is a brand of boot in the US.
There you go. That's who we get in our garden in the winter.
Yeah, well now that looks just like our robin.
Similar, sort of, that's the closest that we get to yours. But yeah, they join us from Scandinavia, from Iceland, and places like that. But our resident is a blackbird, which is also a thrush, but we have lots of them if you put blackbird in.
Really? So do you have these birds in your yard?
What, blue tits?
Yes.
Lots of them.
Lots
Millions
of blue tits.
Of them.
Millions of them.
Of
Well, you know how excited you were about seeing the Cardinal, and what a beautiful bird you thought the red Cardinal was here. I would probably become sick to my stomach. I'd be so excited if I saw this bird on a branch in my yard. Bill, wouldn't you say that would give you a real raise? I mean,
I absolutely would. That's beautiful.
That is a
Whereas
fantastic
if
looking
you came over here, you would fall over them because they're just everywhere. And I think we've probably got about 30 babies that are just on the feeders all the time at the moment.
Wow,
So,
that is a really beautiful, beautiful
and we
animal.
also get them nesting in little nest boxes as well. They're just everywhere.
Wow. You know,
But the most
I think that's awesome.
But the most concerning thing is in Europe, this virus is starting to kill a lot of blue tits. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a blue tit virus.
Does it affect the eyes of the bird or the entire bird?
It's a new one. It's a virus, not a parasite. So I need to look it up. But they have sort of like, I think it has come over the channel, and we are starting to get a bit worried about it. And I'm worried about it because I'd hate to lose them. So we're sort of like trying to keep our eye on that at the moment. But it's a bit like the COVID pandemic. We're going to get a blue tit pandemic.
Well, here we have a lot of problems with, because a lot of our birds have evolved to depend upon bird feeders, like the hummingbird I was just showing you. And we have a problem with finches and small birds here at feeders that get this conjunctivitis, which is a bacterial infection, and it's killed millions of birds every year here. So is this thing that because I know that you're in the medical research field, is this something that is associated with dirty or unsanitary feeders, or is it just coming from nature?
Well, we've had this parasite that lives in finches' mouths for quite a while, and I won't say the name because I can't pronounce it, and it always it begins with a T. And that is spread by dirty feeders and also infected water supplies. And what it does is it just stops them from being able to swallow. So you'll see finches sat in your feeders all fluffed up, sort of like pecking at the food and then just dropping the food. When you see that, you've got to stop feeding for at least 2 weeks to try and disperse the birds to make them go away. Clean absolutely everything. But I think that we've lost about 80% of our green finches because of this pest.
Green finch, huh?
Yeah,
it's never heard of that either.
We used to get so many green finches, on the feeders. It's something, when we were small, they used to be just everywhere. But I have about 10 years not seen one on my feeder. In the last 2 years, I think we've had just 1 or 2 families just coming back. And certainly this year we've had a few babies on the feeder. So maybe they're on the increase again, which we're hoping.
So this is formerly and hopefully future is a common bird for you to have at feeders in where you live. Now you don't live in the city, you live somewhere out in what we would call the country or the suburbs, right?
Yeah, I would call it the suburbs. I wouldn't call it the country, but nothing in the UK is really in the country because we're so overpopulated.
Well, here in the US, we have the city, and then if you go past a certain line, everything is the country, and it's a totally different culture and a totally different experience than being in one of the major cities here. So.
Well, yeah, I certainly noticed that when we went to see the eclipse in 2017. I've never seen such huge expanses. It's just incredible. Really? Whereas the only thing close to that would be to go to Scotland, the very far north of Scotland, and that's where it's completely empty. But in the UK, really, you can't go 5 minutes without stumbling across another person.
Yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. I hadn't really thought of that. And when I was there, we were driving on some of your interstates, or I don't know what you call them there.
Motorway.
With motorway. Yeah, how about that? with our mutual friend Mark Townley and his wife Fiona, and we were driving, and they shoved me into this car and forced me into it, and I was just kind of pressed against the window hoping to survive. But there really were no expanses of anything. There was no, here we can drive 100 miles, 200 miles in some states without seeing anything except dirt or crops. But that's just not possible.
No, and this is why, a lot of wildlife in the UK is critically endangered because they've just been pushed out. And what I wanted to show to you today, because I got really excited about it, I don't know whether you can see on the, it's probably a bit too
Beaver Reintroduction Local Residents Survey.
Yeah. So for 400 years, the UK has not had any beavers whatsoever. And in the last 10 years, they've been trialing like little small places in Cornwall and also in Scotland to bring back beavers because they are absolutely critical, like for the environment. They're sort of like the pinnacle of the habitat builders. And we don't have that anymore in this country. And we have great problems with flooding and soil erosion. And it's like, can we bring back the beaver? And I was so excited to see that actually in our county, they want to bring back beavers.
That's fantastic.
So we want to know what the local residents think. And it's like, well, yes, do so. But I bet
I'd like to fill out the beaver survey myself because I love beavers. Here in the U.S., that is not a common opinion. People consider them a nuisance animal. All your agricultural people consider it a nuisance. And they shoot beaver. You know, people shoot them left and right. But there is a movement here where farmers and agricultural types have found that if you work with the beaver, it's really an excellent way to build water routing systems, is to let the beaver do their natural thing. And we actually have breeding beaver in our local nature preserve that I run every year, and we see them. And I guess, you know, I hadn't really thought of how fortunate I was to see them, but now that you remind me, I'll have a new appreciation for them. And these beaver have this giant yellow tooth when they open their mouth, and do this. And they got a really long yellow tooth right here, and they do this. And the tooth is yellow because they eat so much tree sap. It's really an interesting bird. I would not like to tangle with one because they're so fat here. I mean, they're as big as a large dog, and you'll see them sleeping on the bank sometime. And I would imagine that large tooth that just sawed down a 6-inch, you know, hardwood could probably do a number on your hand.
But without them, you wouldn't have the habitat that you have, because without them, you wouldn't have the wetlands, you wouldn't have the fish nurseries, you wouldn't have the insects, you wouldn't have, you know, very, very quickly waterways get full of trees, and so that the land dries out. And they also get covered with tree foliage, so you don't get the you know, like the little flowers, so therefore you don't get the insects. They're absolutely at the top of building the whole habitat of wetlands. So, and this is what we're missing here.
I don't know if you're going to get the video portion of this, but this is a
I would so love to see that again. Well, obviously not again because I've never seen them, but I'm really looking forward to them, you know, coming to our county.
I'm trying to turn that video down, I'm sorry. But yeah, this is just filmed a couple miles from my house. And are you able to hear me talking, Alexander?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's the little beaver. And
Stephen, is that Clyde Shepherd?
Let's see what else he's gonna do. Oh, that's our kingfisher. But I did miss that very last comment you made, but we watch them and they'll just chew right through a tree and just drag the tree through the water, and they build these big dams. And the only reason we have a pond at Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve, where I maintain the preserve, is because the beavers have built a dam in the drainage area. So you're right, it does maintain the environment, and they maintain their own environment, you know, by blocking the water. So
yeah, they're very important, so don't lose them, because it's only when you lose them that you suddenly realize what you've done.
You know the truth. You know, we are really spoiled with the wildlife we have here because, you know, we're the New World. We've only been destroying it for 200 or 300 years. I mean, in the UK, they've been destroying the environment for what, 3,000 years, since Roman times and sooner. So yeah, I guess it's really a good thing to do to watch what's happened there and try to, you know, both repair that and not let that happen here in the States. By the way, is there any way we can come back and just give up and realign ourselves with the UK? Because we've made a mess of it, and I was hoping maybe, you know, can we get back together? Yeah, I know we've broken up, Alexander, but can our countries get back together?
Oh, I don't know. Would you really want to be aligned with ours?
Very true. I have to think about that. So I hope that you will be able to join us again, maybe with some photographs from your garden. I know that you think you're not an avid bird photographer, but I've seen some of your pictures, and you have a groundhog also, don't you, that lives in your garden?
Oh, what, the hedgehog?
The hedgehog, yeah. We call it a groundhog here, whatever. So maybe
I'm not sure whether he's disappeared, actually. I've had my camera out for the last month, and I've just not been getting anything. On the odd occasions, the food goes. So I think he is still there, but I don't know. He's not as regular as he was in the spring, but he is still. Oh, hummingbird.
There's our little ruby-throated hummingbird, and I thought they had left, but that's a female, and she is back. So that means I got to mix up more water, because every 3 days, Alexander, you have to mix up sugar and water and replace it every 2 to 3 days in this heat. and I've been doing it since March 29th. But, you know, it's a small price to pay to have such a beautiful creature flying around. And Alexandra, these are the only birds on Earth that can fly backwards, if you didn't know that. They can hover and also fly backwards. It's really crazy to watch. And they buzz right by your ear when you're sitting on the patio, and you can hear them. They'll scare you if you're not expecting it. And it sounds like a bumblebee or something is flying into your ear. And you've probably seen the video. I can feed them out of my hand, you know. It's really
Didn't one inspect your ear?
yeah, one that pecked me on the ear. That's happened several times. So they're lots of fun. Maybe we should bring over some hummingbirds and let them loose in Alexandra's garden.
Oh,
and,
no, don't. We've got enough problems with Grace.
You got enough problems, huh?
Alexandra,
Well,
could I ask Alexandra a question?
Yes.
This is a little bit off the subject, but I watched Doc Martin, and I really get a kick out of that show. I love the setting too, by the way. But anyway, there's some things they talk about putting a jelly on somebody's doorstep, and also burning a badger. And I never could figure out what was. Is there some kind of meaning to doing that? I mean,
oh boy.
I'm not quite sure. Well, I've never seen Doc Martin.
I know what they mean, and you don't want to know.
Oh, really? Well, no, I'm not quite sure what they mean either. I've not heard of those terms before.
maybe it's something he improvised. He's kind of he's a strange dude, but I love the way he practices medicine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know who you mean, actually.
Yeah.
You know, BBC America here is probably the best show on our system, and everyone loves it. You know, they've really come a long way in the last 10 years, but they don't really get BBC America in the UK, so they don't really know what we're talking about half the time when we're talking about shows that we're watching on BBC America. So I think that's funny. Do you and I know what burning a badger is, and Bill, that's a Navy thing that we should talk about off camera. So
I didn't realize I was talking about something.
And I'm not sure what dropping a jelly is, but I'm pretty sure I know what that is.
What was it in context with?
I really can't say, because this is a family program, Alexandra. And I know how proper you are, and you would never forgive me. So but we'll talk off camera. Listen, Alexandra, I am so grateful that you took the time out of your day, because it's what, 5:30 p.m.
No, 4:30. Well, 4:20. I was actually having a nightmare at work at the moment, so that's why I was a little bit late. I have to go back to all the emails that are coming in.
Right. We've heard all the chimes from your emails, so we know how busy you are.
Yeah, that worries me.
Yeah. Well, I am very grateful that you came on to our broadcast, and I really hope that you will come on again and give us a more in-depth preview of your garden and talk a little bit more about nature in the UK. And thank you so much, Alexandra Hart.
Yeah, it's been lovely listening about your wildlife. It's different.
Very good.
A lot more of it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the wildlife in my neighborhood, I would like to get rid of, especially the human wildlife, but we can talk about that another time. Bill Anderson from the marshes in Southeast Georgia, Wilmington Island. Thank you, my friend. You've made it a wonderful program, and I greatly appreciate you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that it turned out to be something to benefit Sunlit Earth and maybe draw some viewers and whatnot. But it was a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. So, viewers, thank you for tuning in to our first show. And next week, we are going to have a super special guest that is so special I can't even tell you yet because it's private. But you will not want to miss next week's show. And we are going to check in. We ran out of time this time, but next week we're going to check in with eBird reports from our local birding areas. Fall migration is in full swing, so get outside, write down what you see, use eBird to report your birds so we can all tell what's going on. And thank you for tuning in to This Week in Sunlit Earth. We will see you next week.
Bye.